where the towers used to stand, and when it collapsed, they created this huge crevice.
Right.
And we were down in there doing a search, and we come out of a void, and there was a guy from FDNY sitting on the end of a beam, calling his buddy's name out. That was one of the most heart-wrenching things I saw.
In the seconds, minutes, hours, and eventually months after planes struck the World Trade Center towers in downtown Manhattan, scores of dedicated investigators worked painstakingly to find every shred of evidence and to find every small item that might comfort those who would never see their friends and loved ones again. Those experiences changed every member of law enforcement and leaves them with a very definite perspective on what the job entails and what that means in protecting Americans in a post-9/11 world. Let's welcome to Midpoint former NYPD Detective Sergeant and Commander of Manhattan Detectives during the time of 9/11, Wally Zines joins us today. Wally, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
In the background right now at our studios, we hear the sounds of a police siren, could also be fire rescue. When you hear, I mean, you've heard them so many times, but when you hear those sounds right now, it still has to put a lump in your throat if you think back to 13 years ago and what those sounds meant to everybody.
Especially in this, on September 11th, hearing those sirens, it was like a constant sound. And it was and you knew there was more and more people responding to the worst disaster that ever hit this city.
Certainly you're a professional, but when you got there, when you arrived at Ground Zero, you had to be overwhelmed. Even the professionals that I've spoken to were just shocked at the enormity of it and wondering, my God, what am I going to do next?
Well, you know, I thought I saw everything in my career until that morning when I was coming down the West Side Highway, and my dispatcher told me that we have a small plane that hit the World Trade Center, and I was there and I can see the damage, and it wasn't a small plane. And immediately I called in and asked for all detectives citywide to respond to the World Trade Center. And we then set up a command post in the Downtown Athletic Club. And it was just a tour change at that time. So we were getting the midnight to 8 people that I was commanding, and we also got the day tour. And it was unbelievable to see what was going on there. It was just, like, words can't explain it. I was at the Downtown Athletic Club, and then the next plane hit, and you know, you actually, as a professional, you try to do your job, but you're also a human being, and it really affected everybody that was there. But we had a job to do, and we had to get out there. And we had some problems. The first day, our communications wasn't up to par with the fire department. We weren't able to communicate with them at their command center. I remember walking down the west side to the South Tower that was still up, and I just got called from my chief to come over to his office and put down a strategy plan with him. And just as I left, the tower went down. And I'm very fortunate that I was going to that instead of being inside the Trade Center. I could have been one of the tragic victims. Then from there, you know, one of the most, you remember certain things. And I remember the first day where we were there, I saw only one complete body. And after that, it was just body parts. And it was just, I can't explain to you, but I can tell you it was very rewarding to see all the first responders and all people that came in there to help us from all over the world. It was a team effort. And one of the things I learned that was so important is that you have to share information. With today's climate, you have to be able to, everyone in law enforcement, whether it's federal, state, or local, you have to be able to share information that we're all on the same page.
You just talked about something I want to get to, but first I want to back up just a little bit when you talk about being there. And many people think that when it came to finding the victims, that it was finding bodies. But what I think people don't understand is, and this does make an impact without being morbid here, there was not much left of people on the grounds.
There was
on that
not.
day.
There absolutely was not. In fact, we notified all emergency rooms throughout the 5 boroughs were put on notice, and we went and we opened up a pier on the west side where we used that as a temporary morgue. And then after that, we went to the morgue, and I got assigned to the morgue for 3 months just on chain of custody and identifying body parts. I mean, it was. I can't explain to you what it was like to see a turnout coat of a firefighter coming into the morgue, and you open it up and it's just dust. I mean, it was such a tragic thing. My prayers go out to every family and everyone that lost a life on September 11th.
When you talk about the fact that we now share information and we needed to do a better job, do you think back now of the arrogance of so many people, perhaps in authority, who didn't want to share information, who wanted to keep things to themselves? And suddenly, in light of what happened on 9/11, we realized how short-sighted we were, and how moving forward 13 years later, if we don't do this, it's going to happen to us again.
Absolutely. And let me say this to you. On the first day, when I went back to my chief's office and we sat down with the game plan and the tactical plan, what's going to be done, I was told there that my detectives will be working missing persons and that the FBI and FEMA will be handling the investigation. Now, FEMA, in all due respect to FEMA, I don't think they have the investigative skills that we have and the experience and the confidential informants that were needed to talk about, different people in different areas. This was a complete law enforcement type of investigation with a lot of intelligence that was needed. And again, in all due respect for FEMA, there are many things that they do that we in law enforcement don't know. But investigatively, we were not sharing the way it should be shared. And shame on us for that aspect. When I say that, because I was right there, and you go to one of the other people from, say, the FBI, and you ask them certain questions. It was like being jerked around for a certain degree. But let me say this to you: the FBI and all the other federal agencies and all the state agencies and all the municipal agencies that work there work together in the sense of trying to accomplish whatever the mission was for that day.
Wally, do you feel safer now, 13 years later?
I do feel safer, but we have to be more vigilant. We really do. You know that saying, you see something, say something? A lot of people don't realize how important that is, because the name of the game, even if it turns out to be not true, say you see a package in the street, a suitcase, an attaché case, call it in. That's the job of law enforcement, to make that determination if it's something that was stolen, something that's explosive, something that could be part of a terroristic act. We have to all work together, and that's not just the law enforcement community. It's all of us. It's the media. It's the public. It's anyone and anything that can help to put this to an end. We are a very vulnerable target, and I'm not just saying New York City. I'm talking about the whole United States.
About a minute I have left then. What you just said then, how angry are you in many ways to know that we are still so vulnerable and there are still people out there who don't seem to get it?
Well, the name of the game for me is to be able to have the people in the different law enforcement agencies to work together and share the information. I mean, I go to seminars where we talk about some of the most unusual things that could happen, from a terrorist attack of implanting explosives in a pet and putting it in a cargo area in a plane. Terrorists going to a school and calling in a bomb scare, and the school across the street brings all the kids over there, and then they take everyone hostage. I mean, there are so many what-ifs, and all those what-ifs all have to be investigated and looked into. And we all have to, like I said before, be extremely vigilant.
Wally Zines, I want to thank you for sharing your stories with us. I hope we talk again, and I hope the next time we talk it is on a positive note, and we do look forward and we find ourselves to be a safer society. As a former New Yorker, thank you very much for all your service there in the city.
Thank you.
All right. Later on this hour, the speech that was supposed to define a presidency but may have left a much fuzzier picture of who and what our leader is. And after the break, the man who decided to see if anyone would stop a terrorist at the northern border. It's coming up here on this special edition of Midpoint.